the floor to the representative of Afghanistan. You have the floor, Excellency.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, Mr. President and members of the Council. I'm honored to make the statement on behalf of my Foreign Minister, His Excellency Mohammad Hani Fatmar, who very much wanted to be here with you but could not travel due to travel to New York due to short notice. Allow me to first congratulate India for assuming the presidency of the Council, and equally congratulate France for successfully finishing its tenure. I would like to also thank Government of India, Norway, and Estonia as the penholders and the rest of the Security Council members, and responding positively to our request to brief the Council about the alarming developments in Afghanistan. This meeting also highlights the Security Council's commitment to ensuring that the people of Afghanistan are able to live in peace, security, and dignity enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In this regard, I should also like to welcome the Security Council statement of 4 August, condemning the terrorist attack on UN compound in Herat and the recent increase in the level of violence in the country. Let me also thank SRSG Lyons for her thoughtful briefing and highlighting the alarming threat and serious concern about the situation in Afghanistan. Mr. President, we're compelled to ask for this urgent meeting as the situation in Afghanistan has been rapidly deteriorating due to recent escalation of violence by the Taliban and their brutal military offensives on major cities and population centers in several provinces. In gross contradiction of the Doha Peace Agreement, the UN Security Council Resolution 2513, and of the regional and international consensus embodied in the extended Troika and the Heart of Asia Istanbul process, the Taliban have launched brutal military offensives, already causing massive death, destruction, displacement, and instability in Afghanistan and beyond. What is even more alarming is their attacks on cities, including Kandahar, Herat, Lashkargah, Ghazni, Sheberghan, and Zaranj as of yesterday. And this was also confirmed by SRSG. Millions of people are now vulnerable to indiscriminate shelling, death, injuries, destruction, and displacement. Our cities and public infrastructure that we have rebuilt with your support over the past 2 decades are now exposed to unimaginable level of Taliban destruction. In this deliberate act of barbarism, the Taliban are not alone, and they are assisted by foreign fighters from transnational terrorist networks. Together, they are threatening our peace, security, and stability, not only in Afghanistan, but also in our region and beyond. It is our collective responsibility to stop them from destroying Afghanistan and threatening the world community. The scale, scope, and timing of their military offensive is akin to an invasion unprecedented in the last 30 years of our conflict. Since mid-April, the Taliban and their affiliate foreign terrorist groups have launched more than 5,500 attacks in 31 of the 34 provinces of Afghanistan. These attacks have been launched with direct support of more than 10,000 foreign fighters representing 20 groups, including Al-Qaeda, LET, TTP, IMU, ETIM, and ISIL, who entered our country and are fighting alongside Taliban against our population and security forces. There is mounting evidence that the East Turkestan Islamic Movement and the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, which have pledged allegiance to ISIL, fought alongside Taliban in Faryab, Jozjan, Takhar, and Badakhshan provinces, where they are currently present with their families under Taliban control. The link between Taliban and these transnational terrorist groups is stronger today than at any point in recent times. Just as indicated numerous times by the sanction monitoring team of the UN Security Council, the Taliban contrary to their commitments under their Doha Agreement, have not broken ties with their regional and international terrorist organizations. In fact, these links are unbreakable, as they have been cultivated and built on shared ideology, interest and goals, and intermarriages, which have been translated into joint attacks, logistical, and material support. The implication of allowing this network to continue to grow inside the country carries great security risk, not only for Afghanistan, but also for the wider region and even the world. This is a shared risk and concern to all of us, as they are not the Taliban of the 21st century coming from the isolated madrasas, but the manifestation of the nexus between transnational terrorist networks and transnational criminal organizations. Their links to drugs, to smuggling, to robbing of our natural resources is unprecedented. And those who encourage and participate with them, of course, are the beneficiaries. Therefore, this is not a civil war, but a war of criminalized and terrorist networks fought on the back of Afghans. Importantly, the Taliban continue to enjoy a safe haven in and supply and logistic line extended to their war machine from Pakistan. Graphic reports and video of Taliban fighters congregating close to the Durand line to enter Afghanistan, fundraising events, transfer of dead bodies for mass burial, and treatment of injured Taliban in Pakistani hospitals are emerging and are widely available. This is not only a naked violation of the 1988 UN Security Council sanction regime, but also leads to further erosion of trust and confidence towards establishing a collaborative relationship with Pakistan to end the war in Afghanistan. Consistent with the agreement of the leadership of Afghanistan and Pakistan in Tashkent last month, we urge Pakistan to help with removing and dismantling of Taliban sanctuaries and supply line and establish with us a joint monitoring and verification mechanism to make the fight against terrorism and international effort for peace effective and credible. Let me reiterate here that Afghanistan desires nothing but friendly relation and peaceful coexistence with Pakistan based on mutual respect for each other's sovereignty. Mr. President, we are alarmed by reports and incidences of gross human rights violation by the Taliban and their foreign terrorist associate in almost half of our country. And we are extremely concerned about the safety and security of people in cities under Taliban attacks and what brutality would await them. I'm glad to see Mr. Shahzad Akbar, chairwoman of the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission, to shed further light on this. But shocking and heart-wrenching images and videos of Taliban's brutality and cruelties against civilian population and people suspected of working for the government and international forces are emerging in social media, which are too graphic to even describe them in my statement here. Suicide bombings, summary execution, revenge killing, stoning to death, chopping of hands, flogging of children, forced marriages, and restricting women and girls' movement are a common occurrence in area under Taliban control and are sanctioned by Taliban religious fatwas. Sadly, this morning, Taliban terrorists killed one of our bravest and sons of Afghanistan, Mr. Dawa Khan, who was the head of the Afghan Media and Communication Center. This is in sharp contrast to Taliban's claim of moderation and respect for international law or even Sharia law. Yes, the Taliban have changed, but for the worst. They have become more violent in their action, cruel in treatment of local population, more extremist in their thinking, and revengeful against sympathizers of the government. The imposition of Taliban's draconian rule has portrayed no positive change from the ideologies that dominated the thinking of the so-called Islamic Emirates of the 90s and what is espoused by ISIS and other extremist groups today. Mr. President, the indiscriminate level of violence exhibited by the Taliban has exacerbated already dire humanitarian situation in the country caused by drought and the pandemic. Since the start of their offensive, more than 5,300 civilians, including 1,960 women and children have been killed and injured, while thousands other have been displaced. This adds to the burden of approximately 4.8 million people displaced in a country and 8.4 million people who are in need of humanitarian assistance. These numbers could easily increase exponentially if attacks against big population centers and cities continue unabated. Therefore, the Council must act and prevent a catastrophic situation. The fall of 10 border crossings to the Taliban has led to suspension of trade and a surge in prices of primary goods, which is further adding to the misery of the population affected by decades of conflict. Taliban attacks have also come with a great cost to public infrastructure, signifying losses of millions of dollars and years of development investment. During this period, the Taliban have destroyed more than 260 public buildings, including schools, hospitals, bridges, and communication towers. Taliban's destruction of public and private infrastructure has deprived over 13 million people of public services and has amounted to more than $500 million of damage. Mr. President, we are confident in the bravery and professionalism of our national defense and security forces to defend the Republic, which is the manifestation of our values and determination to fight for our homeland and for the future of our children. In recent days, we have witnessed an immense demonstration of support from Afghans within and outside the country for our security forces. Our defense of the Islamic Republic has turned into a national resistance movement, and our people have spoken loud that they do not want to go back to the Taliban's dark era of the 90s. Peace has been the most urgent need and demand of the Afghan people, and achieving peace is the uppermost priority for the Afghan government. To realize this, President Ghani has repeatedly called on the Taliban to adhere to a ceasefire and engage in meaningful negotiations. To support the peace talks, my government has offered a peace plan and made painful concessions, including the release of over 6,000 prisoners of Taliban, most of whom have returned to battlefields. But the Taliban continue to defy and ignore the call of the international community, and more specifically of this Council, to cease their hostilities toward our people and engage in meaningful peace talks. As the departure of foreign troops from Afghanistan has been nearly complete, this clearly shows that the Taliban and their foreign associates are fighting for power to turn our country once again into a safe haven of transnational terrorism, which will no doubt pose a threat to the region and the global community. Mr. President, against this grim and disturbing situation unfolding in my country, it's high time for the Council to use every means at its disposal to compel the Taliban to end their campaign of violence and terror against our people and to prevent further bloodshed and urge them to return to talks. We ask the Council to use existing tools, including the effective implementation of the sanction regime under Resolution 1988 and UN Security Council Resolution 2513, to pressure the Taliban to engage in meaningful peace talks with the government negotiating team. We request the Council to discharge its responsibilities under the United Nations Charter and take all necessary measures to stop Taliban's attack on big cities and population centers. Currently, 6 cities of Herat, Lashkargah, Kandahar, Ghazni, Zaranj, and Sheberghan are under Taliban attack, and soon other cities, including Kabul, will be targeted. We ask the Council and call on the international community to take preventive measures, including convening of a special session of the Security Council and the Human Rights Council, to avert a catastrophic situation of human rights violation and large-scale displacement of civilian population, which we've witnessed in the Middle East and other conflicts around the world. We have an opportunity to stop this now. We would like to request the Council and the United Nations Secretary General to provide support to the ongoing peace talks in Doha and the regional and international meetings planned next week in Doha to achieve the goal of preventing Taliban attacks on cities and of reaching political settlement and ceasefire. We appreciate and support the role of the UN Secretary General's personal envoy for Afghanistan, Mr. Jean Arnaud, and Special Representative in Kabul, Ms. Deborah Lyons. And finally, we call on our friends and partners to support our government's new security plan to stabilize Afghanistan and protect the region and the international community against the scourge of international terrorism. In conclusion, I would like to express my appreciation to the steadfast support of the Security Council members and their principal positions in difficult times for Afghanistan. I hope that today's discussion will not only contribute to the peace efforts underway in Doha, but also send a strong message to the Taliban about the Council's determination to hold them accountable to their commitment and promises in finding a peaceful solution to the current conflict. I thank you, Mr. President.